Hello, hello.
Hi, Martin. How are you?
Doing great, thank you. How are you doing?
Good.
Good.
Good. I was excited to talk to you. You've had an interesting life, haven't you?
Aha, yes, I have. But also, I'm loving what you're doing. I think it's great. You've utilized your background to obviously you put a huge amount of work into preparing the courses and content. And I think it's super helpful. I think it's very practical, super good, well designed, super thoughtful.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll make sure that part's recorded.
Okay, that's right, exactly. Good.
I'm going to get this stuff cleared off so it doesn't slow us down. And I have information to get going. You know what? Let's start off by you telling our listeners, our practitioners and coaches and people who will be really interested in your story and what you have to share. So if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and all that you've gone from one extreme to the other, where you're talking about gentle introspection and all of that, and then the most radical physiological exertion. So I'm excited to hear your story.
So, where to begin? So, as a kid, I was really attracted by nature. And I grew up in Liverpool, a very dirty, smelly city, but my parents went out regularly into nature. So, really, that was a big driver for my life, but also was a driver was curiosity. I've seen that's been a theme throughout my life is just what's next? What's possible? What's next? And so, I started off doing the what's next in terms of, climbing a rock or hiking a mountain, but then I started wondering, well, what's possible in terms of my human potential? And so I went from what's next in terms of physical potential to what's next in terms of human potential. So really that's a theme that runs through my life, really. And if you look at it from another way of looking at it, though, is a psychologist, if you look at my early childhood, would probably say, well, abnormal psychology led you to want to escape society and out into nature. Right? So it depends which lens you look, you get different pictures.
No, I think we could all be guilty of that.
That's right, exactly. Yes.
You've led expeditions to the North Pole, the South Pole, Mount Everest. What did those extreme environments teach you about human resilience, health, and the mind-body connection?
That's a super good question. So really what I see is that, again, I know I'm speaking to many practitioners, right? And so
Right.
I really look at it from the lens of um, we have high emotional resilience. We're more present, we're more effective in every aspect of life. And especially working in this field, it is so important that one is being effective, right? Because that affects every aspect. The courses that information you have is very much around effectiveness, right? How to be effective, how not to get distracted by all these, minutiae in terms of organizational and administrative tasks. And so really I see that on expeditions, um, you end up developing emotional resilience because you're thrown into a wide variety of situations. And so as a sort of one way to look at life is the more situations we throw ourselves into, the more we end up developing emotional resilience, the more we access emotional intelligence, the more we access even intuition as a natural process of throwing ourselves, cold water in hot situations, in wild, wild situations. I see that the people who are attracted to the more adventurous things, do end up often with greater emotional intelligence, emotional resilience. But we can also, there's a bunch of ways we can develop it.
I'm wondering everybody goes into an extreme environment and comes out with emotional intelligence. What's the difference between coming out with emotional intelligence and coming out no
Good.
smarter than
Yeah, yes. Um, that's a good question. I'm still trying to. So, yeah, what I do see is that we can develop just a harshness, right? These harsh environments create harshness. But having also been in cultures that live in most remote environments, like I spent time with the Inuit in northern Canada, the Sherpas in Nepal, often remote environments actually create a caring and a softness for individuals, for each other, because we need that to survive. The value of life is very important. So, what your question, the way I understand it, is how can I use these to develop emotional resilience? And I really do
that's a
think
good
that,
way to look at that question. Yes.
yeah, I see is that if we're asking the question, how do I develop emotional resilience? How do I develop emotional intelligence? We start looking at situations through a different lens. So just by asking a question, we often see life through a different lens. In any situation, by coaching, I'm often people shift perspective on the situation in the moment. Simple example, which I'm sure so many of your listeners can relate to, is somebody who's in an unconscious pattern. I'll give you an example. Somebody who drives to work in LA and 2 out of 10 days get stuck in traffic, and when they're stuck in traffic, they get upset, right? And as soon as somebody starts working with them, asking them questions, and says, "Well, what are your options? You're interested in learning a language? Are you interested in this? You're listening to music?" All of a sudden, what goes from an unconscious habit, which could last 20 years, many hours spent frustrated in a car, to all of a sudden, no, actually, I want to learn Spanish, so now I'm learning Spanish when I'm stuck, right? So just by a cognitive shift, all of a sudden, boom, the light bulb goes off, the person, leaves the session and they're on their way, right? So often these shifts can happen very fast or they take time, and we need a whole pile of different processes to shift. But often the fundamental is, how do I shift my perception on this event? So by asking those questions about, well, it wasn't bothered by the cold in this situation or by the bad weather, how can I handle that in my home life? So taking the incidents we learn from adventure and applying them, well, life is an adventure. So my car broke down in Spain and the car was hanging off the cliff. And in a moment, it felt worrisome, but later on, it's a big story, right? How can
Right.
I take that back to when my car's broken down, right? But it's, life is an adventure. My car's broken down, rather than fall into my default, which would be to, read, let's complain to my friends, all that sort of stuff. No, this is adventure. What's the next step?
Yeah, you spent 7 years as a Hindu monk in India. How did that experience shape your understanding of mental clarity, emotional well-being, and the practices that support long-term health?
Great question. So, we ended up doing often were very similar to what I saw I was doing on expeditions. We did things like we reduced food intake, we reduced sleep, we experimented, we meditated for many hours. One of the things we did was we'd go out early in the morning, we'd make a sand, we'd make a circle in the sand and put logs in it, set them on fire. And then once they died down, we go and sit in the middle, right? So you're sitting in a circle of flame and embers, right? And so there's smoke blowing in your face and you're meditating, right? Smoke's blowing in my face, sparks landing on my clothing. And sometimes it would be just totally pure bliss, right? Just absolute bliss. And
I
other
can't
times it would just,
imagine.
and other times it would be mental chaos, right? What am I doing here? Get me out of here. And so what I realized there is that because the same thing had occurred on expeditions when I'd be guiding a group in, you want to bicycle through Bolivia. It's our perfect holiday, put the money into it. Now we're in our perfect place, the weather's perfect, everything's perfect, and that person could be having a lousy day because girlfriend hadn't spoken to them in a few days or whatever. So we can be in the most amazing place in the world with our decision, our choice, everything is aligned and have a lousy day. We can also be in sitting in a fire and have a great day. So it's our internal space that decides what happened, what we're going through, right? So again, I'm thinking now to the professional, it's your internal space that decides how you interact with the client, whether it's present, super helpful, clear, etc., or whether you're distracted, frustrated, irritated.
Intentionally put yourself into a mindset where you're better able to do that, to leave everything else outside of it.
Yes, and let me just sort of thinking through your question here. Do definitely, I see that so many of the people I know I'm speaking to, yourself included, would have various practices to help you. So look at it from the lens of which practices really work for me. How can I double down on them? How can I utilize them more frequently? And so definitely what I see is that having spent all that time in India, what I saw is that um, practice makes a difference and it's incremental. Sometimes just this meditation making no difference, then all of a sudden you feel a big difference. Or this, whatever it is not me, but then all of a sudden there's a big leap in terms of just perception, ability to be present, ability to absorb going on in front around you.
It sounds like practice is maybe started out with smoke and embers, and holding your attention, but the more times you did it, you got more to a ethereal experience.
That's right, yes, yeah. I see with even how we set up our day is super important. So how we wake up, how we create intention for the day, all those things I see as being super important.
Do your breathing exercises in the morning, not at night.
That's right, yes, yeah.
You have a memoir, Sure Let's Go. First of all, how do we find that? Where can we find Sure Let's Go?
Oh, okay. It's on Amazon,
Okay.
and I think your name will be associated with this. And so Martyn Williams, Sure Let's Go. And the rest of the title is To the Ends of the Earth and a Bit Past It. So it's like, okay, off we go to Mount Everest, off we go to the North Pole, South Pole, these wild, wild, and then we go off, and on the discoveries of spending time as a monk.
Book you describe facing life and death situations. How do these stories translate into practical lessons for people trying to live healthier, more intentional lives now?
Hmm. See that it is possible to um, look at death through a different lens. In the West, we tend to look at death and grief, and a lot of emphasis is put on death and grief. But having spent all that time as a monk, I really see that, oh, it is triggered by patterns inside the body, which are, missing, those sorts of things. And when we're clear inside, all that comes up is a happy memory of that person. So each one of these situations, I ask myself, what is our potential? So our potential, even with the death of a family member, is to remember them as a beautiful being. And just we hear the name and a smile lights up our face, our heart opens up and we go, oh, often society says, grief is a 6 month process or it's longer. We've been grieving for all this sort of stuff. But when actually we can cut through that if we really look at it from a different lens.
Right.
So
Feel closer to somebody after they pass away than before they were here.
that's right. Yes. Yeah.
Work coaching leaders at Thought Exchange. Is that your business?
Yeah.
Thought
Well,
Exchange?
it's one of the companies I coach, actually. Yeah.
Okay. Do you see in burnout, performance pressure, or decision fatigue? And what do you teach to help people stay mentally and physically balanced?
Okay. I guess what I see overall is that when people come to me, they'll come to me with a specific problem, right? And, I'm over, as often as we start breaking it down, there's often huge elements of communication in there. And often just to learn skills to in a different way. So many of the issues are changed through increasing communication. And then that typically spills over into the family life too, and into health. So it's, this core thing of just either not speaking up or not asking for what they need or lens on communication. If you shift that lens, all of a sudden people become, better husbands, better wives. They tend to look after their health better. A whole
Mhm.
pile of things happen when we really, and then that goes back to knowing what I'm feeling inside and being able to act feelings and heal feelings or access them or express them, which then has this ripple effect out into the outer world.
Well, there's a lot of people that don't even know what feelings are. They don't even recognize their feelings, do they?
That's right, yes. And often that's so the beginning of the process. They'll come to me with a specific, you know, gripe about a person or feel stressed and overwhelmed. And and some of the more extreme examples I've seen are people who've said to me, I've said, come you're not explaining to your leader about you can't, this task is delayed. And they're saying, well, all I say is yes. The leader gives me a task, I say yes. And this goes back into early childhood of them just saying yes to their mother or dad, right? And not, and so as we unpack that, some of the people have said literally, my mouth is frozen. No, nothing else comes out except yes. And so then,
You're
then
programmed.
that's right. Yeah, they're programmed basically. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
how to overcome that programming. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, language of project planning I can access, timeline, what's the resources, what's the cost, what's the et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
You talked about your extremes, but how do you blend adventure, spirituality, and modern coaching science into your approach to health and human potential?
Well, I really approach people where they're at. And so
Mhm.
people, there's a vast range of where people are at and their aspirations. So some people view it as, very mechanistically, I have this, I'm very logical about my physical body and about my mental state. And so, I have to start where they're at. And so people, recognize that there is spiritual dimension to life, and I'm interested in accessing that, so we can go there. So, but fundamentally, I keep coming back to this whole idea of just um, often it's shifting perspectives from an unconscious perspective to a more conscious perspective. And if I can help people with that and they get into the habit of shifting perspective, then that's in the long term. Then it's a beautiful journey, looking at how do I shift perspective on this? How do I shift what and also what is my ultimate potential in with this perspective, My ultimate what is my ultimate perspective around grief, for instance? Start asking that question and a whole pile of things unravel, right?
What are some simple daily practices drawn from both your expedition experience and your I'm going to not be able to pronounce that word,
Monistic.
monastic, is that
Yeah.
it? Monastic training that listeners can use to build resilience, intuition, and inner calm?
So I think one of the big ones, which is going to be, I find it so powerful, but other people may find it quite difficult, is first thing in the morning to smile, actually, and then ideally even laugh. So if we can wake up and start smiling and laughing, it shifts everything about the day. And in India, we would do laughter meditations that would last for 48 minutes, right?
Oh my gosh.
48 minutes of straight laughter, right? Well, what would happen in that time period? Because we'd also do them for 20 minutes, and 20 minutes people could laugh for 20 minutes. But 48 minutes, what happens is around 20 or 30 minutes, all of a sudden we fall into intense sadness and crying, and emotions come up, and then we fall back into laughter again. Then we're laughing at the sadness. So it's very bizarre. But for, the big thing would be just laugh for even for 20, 30 seconds, and it's so much about the day. And then also typically in my own routine, I'm dancing, I'm goofy songs. I'm basically spending like 15 minutes doing goofy things, making chicken noises,
Make stretching not nearly as boring. You could mix your laughter meditation with your stretching.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
Think I've done laughter meditation before. I went to Santa Vive with a customer that's in Mexico, and we had all different kinds of meditation. And we had laughter meditation. We didn't go for 40 minutes though.
And how did you find it? What was your takeaway from it?
Well, it was an incredible experience. Several different kinds of meditation that we did, and I'll tell you, I left there and I went to the airport in San Diego, and it was just like I got hit with all this noise, so silent, for a
Mhm.
few days. I think it was like 5 days, and then you go to the airport and it's like this noise is bouncing off of you, quiet
Yeah.
and the calm. Yeah.
Yeah, and for the evening, again, laughter and movement and joyful movement, goofy movement, and then in the evening, some sort of gratitude practice. And what I'd say though, to amp up the practice, is to be grateful for the difficult things. So typically we go for our gratitude is for the easy things, right? A great lunch, whatever, easy things, but actually if we go to be grateful for the difficult things, because it's the difficult things we learn. So
Right.
rather than, the restaurant being closed at lunch, was upsetting. The restaurant was closed at lunch. Let me be grateful because I solved it, right? I didn't go into frustration, but I found something else. So
Right. You found a solution, then you feel empowered.
that's right. Yes. Yeah. If we look at these difficult things, they're an opportunity to be empowered, right?
Yeah, you get started with those gratitude exercises, and you could have a 32 numbered list by the time you finish after one full day,
That's right.
especially if you're looking for everything that was a challenge.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it could be a very long list. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so my sense there is as you do it, all of a sudden things don't become a challenge. You start looking at them, oh, actually, no, I'm handling that way better, right? So I'm handling that better. I'm handling that better too. Yeah. And I guess, he's saying to everybody in the evening, even as you're going to bed, just ask, because overnight, thinking processes happening, etc. Be asking, how can I up emotional intelligence game? How be even better at, having even better person or whatever, however is working for you. But asking a question before you're going to bed, you messages from the dream time, all sorts of things happen. And often next morning we'll have some sort of insight, some sort of click, to be what is actually bugging us also,
Get a lot of clarity with that, can't you?
That's right, yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Better too.
That's right, yes, yeah.
Yeah. You currently coaching?
Yes, yeah. I have a coaching practice, yeah.
Yeah. And get a hold of you. We've got a URL here for you, enlightenedadventures.com, and then
That,
let's go. We'll put
yeah.
that underneath the conversation, the show notes, so that everybody will know how to reach you. And then also, we have a link to your book.
Oh, great. Okay.
So anybody listening, you can get a hold of his book, and it's in Amazon, right? That's
Yes, on Amazon,
easy.
yeah, yeah.
You can almost do Amazon with one,
That's right.
one to the button, and it's on your way tomorrow.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're in Liverpool?
No, I was born in Liverpool,
You
gorgeous mountains right around me.
got a
Yeah.
nice area around you. So where all have you lived in your lifetime? Liverpool and
Oh, yeah. Liverpool, Canada, right next to Alaska, Bullet of
cold.
Alaska. I've lived in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I lived in South America for a couple of years. I've lived in California, then in India and then when I was in India, I was teaching meditation in London and New York and, Seattle, LA, etc. So I've lived a few places.
So where's your favorite place?
So is right now where I am,
That's
that's the
easy.
very well
Otherwise,
that's
you'd be
that's the
in
real answer, but
India.
that's the Zen answer, but it's also the real answer. But certainly, so memories, right? So when you ask that question, memories come up with beautiful places around the world. So I loved living in California too. I really lived in Vancouver, it's gorgeous too. So yeah.
Yeah. Heat or cold you prefer?
Um, now I was fanatic for
Cold.
cold for a long time. And
After
now
the smoke and embers.
that's right, yes. Now I'm enjoying the warmth a bit more.
Good.
Mhm.
Well, thank you much for being here with me today. I enjoyed it, and I think that everybody got a lot of good information from our conversation.
Good, thank you. As I said at the beginning, I really enjoy what you're doing. I think it's helpful. And my suggestion to all the listeners, please check out the content because this is a super good way to be more at work. Here you have a system designed to help you more effective at work. So tap into it.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, that was